We're coming to you from the DraftKings.com podcasting studios. DraftKings.com, America's one-day fantasy sports site, where it's like a new season every time you play. DraftKings.com.
From ESPN's Pod Center, this is NBA Lockdown.
Welcome into the latest NBA Lockdown podcast. I am Doug Kezirian. Joining us later on the program, we'll visit with Ethan Strauss of the Golden State Warriors. He covers them for ESPN. What's the vibe right now in Golden State? Yes, up 2-0 in the series over the Pelicans, but got a little hairy, particularly last night in both games. And we'll also visit with Will Reeve, who's a reporter for ESPN. He visited with two 78-year-old female Warriors fans who've been season ticket holders for about 3 decades. Very cool story there, so he'll give us a little insight into what he uncovered in the Bay Area. And but first, we're going to visit with Nick Friedell in Chicago, covers the Bulls for ESPN Chicago, ESPN everything, including SportsCenter last night. You and I, a nice little live shot for the United Center floor.
Doug, I'd be lying to you. I thought it was you, and I kept telling them, is that Doug? Is that Doug? Is that Doug? And we were talking before. Nobody ever said to me, yes, it's Doug, because it was so damn loud in there. So I apologize for not dropping that in during that stand-up, because I've got my man Bill Wennington behind me trying to bump me while you and I are talking. So,
well,
never a dull moment.
Well, all you listeners out there, you need to respect our reporters that much more. I can see them. They can't see us often. And when you got all the noise, you got shoot around. And, we also had a live shot with Michael Wilbon yesterday. And as soon as we started talking, the music came on. So everyone's got to sympathize. You guys got the heavy lifting in this industry.
Hey, it's still better than a real job.
That's
I remind myself of that every day.
I know. I can't believe we get paid for this. So after game one, Derrick Rose does that. Jimmy Butler does that. Bulls, hey, this team's got NBA Finals potential. And then the first quarter happened last night. It's like, all right, these are the Bulls again. What'd you make of everything?
Yes. Well, it's an apt description, because so many times, Doug, this year, this team goes out and they beat a really good team, and you think, okay, well, it's time. It's time for them to take that next step. And then they go out the next night and they lose that at home to Utah or the Magic, or they had a litany of different bad losses this year. But this is why so many people, I think, within the organization, while they wanted to avoid Cleveland, sure, they were happy that they landed against Milwaukee, because Milwaukee is a tough team. They play hard. They just don't have a lot of offensive talent, high-level offensive talent right now. So it's a great opportunity for guys like Derrick Rose and a guy like Joakim Noah, who hasn't played as well as he would have liked and has been hampered by a couple different things going into the playoffs, to get their feet wet and find a rhythm. And Derrick, especially, because he really hasn't played that much in the last 6-7 weeks, it's a good thing. And in that first half, you're looking around, you're going, oh, man, he can't hit a shot. The Bucks are packing the paint. There's not lanes for him to create. What are they going to do? And then, of course, they find an answer, and you're thinking, all right, well, this is the team everybody thought it could be to begin with. So it's a roller coaster of emotions watching this group for fans, because the potential is always there. But then, as you mentioned, you see a first half like that, and you're going, uh-oh, what's going on now?
But still some positives to take away from the game. It wasn't just Derrick Rose playing well in the fourth quarter. Jimmy Butler had 14 points in the fourth quarter, and that may very well be the identity moving forward. It's anyone's opportunity to close out a game, according to Jimmy Butler.
The game is going to give guys open shots, and when they get to the spot that they want to, at any given night, somebody could score 30 points or have 20 rebounds. I feel like we're so deep and we have so many guys that do so many things well that when you're doubling and you kick the ball out, guys are going to knock down shots.
So, Nick, it sounds like the Bulls are embracing that diversity, if you will.
Oh, yeah. There's no question that as you look at how this roster was constructed, that's what they hoped for. They hoped that Derrick would lead them on most nights, as he did in Game 1, Doug. But then you get a guy like Jimmy Butler, who goes and scores 25 in Game 1 and then goes crazy in Game 2 in the fourth quarter, going off for 14 points. This is the complementary piece that they've been trying to pair with Derrick Rose for years. I mean, Jimmy has become that guy. This is what the ascension to stardom looks like. And we've seen him really, really play better this season. He was an all-star for the first time. He's a guy that Tom Thibodeau trusts immensely, not just for his offensive skills, but his defensive prowess on the perimeter. He is out there all the time. I mean, he played 46 minutes last night, but that is the key. The Bulls now feel like, okay, Derrick Rose can beat you, and if he's not going well and they're trapping him and doubling him, as Milwaukee was doing in Game 2, Jimmy Butler can beat you. And then if Jason Kidd decides in Game 3, all right, well, we've got to take some focus and put it on Jimmy Butler, Pau Gasol can beat you. And that's what Milwaukee's whole point in this series has been. They're trying not to let Rose and Gasol beat them, because Gasol killed the Bucks in the regular season, a 46-point game. So that's the issue for this team. That's why there's so much confidence in that room. There are so many different weapons now. This is not the team from 4 years ago where if Derrick Rose was slowed, they didn't have another offensive answer. This group has more depth, it has more talent, and it has more confidence in itself than I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, that 2011 Eastern Conference Finals, the year of Derrick Rose's MVP season, was just so painful to watch down the stretch. They couldn't generate any offense outside of Rose going isolation. And, of course, he was limited when LeBron switched over onto him. But one thing that has been sort of a common denominator of these Tom Thibodeau Bulls teams is their toughness and intensity. And we saw a little bit of the chippiness last night. What did the team say about that afterwards?
Oh, yeah. It was like the good old days for Tibbs. I mean, I know he was on the sidelines enjoying playoff basketball. And that was what they all kept saying last night, Doug. That was the feeling from within the Bulls locker room was, yeah, it's the playoffs, the intensity's high. But I thought Pau Gasol said something interesting. He said Zaza Pachulia, he made two bad plays, not basketball plays. He was referring to the elbow to Mirotić's head around the 4-minute mark in the fourth quarter, and then they got into that dust up down in the corner with a couple minutes left, and that may have longer term ramifications for the Bulls. And I say that because Mirotić left the game after that point. There were about 3 minutes left in regulation. He never came back in the game. He went to the locker room before the game had even finished. There were a couple of reasons for that. One, the Bulls officially said he had a quad injury, but he also had a very swollen knee, and there was fear within the locker room that he may have a concussion. Now, we're going to get an update from Tom Thibodeau in a few hours here, but they need Mirotić to space the floor. I mean, he's a guy that Tibbs has learned to trust because of his ability to not only knock down a long-range shot, but to go to the rim and create for the rest of his teammates. So that could hurt them in the next couple games here if they have to go any time without Mirotić. But that is absolutely what Milwaukee was trying to do. They're trying to junk the game up. They're trying to I don't want to say play dirty, but play rough and tumble to the point where they can get the Bulls off their game. The difference with this group, as we just touched on, though, is you can take out one weapon or two weapons. They've got 4 or 5 now who can beat you. And that's where I think the Bulls believe they have such an advantage over most teams in the league right now.
And the Bucks' calling card, particularly since the All-Star break, has been defense. With all that length, they're one of the best teams in the NBA in defensive efficiency and also opponent field goal percentage. So that's what the Bucks did. I believe Jason Kidd said that after Game 1, called it fool's gold, that first quarter that was a 30-29. They definitely wanted to muck it up. And that's makes, you don't have to be a huge NBA diehard to realize that's what the Bucks want to do. You don't want to get into a shootout with Chicago. And like you said, this particular Bulls team. So we'll continue to monitor Mirotić. We'll look forward to what Tom Thibodeau says. And then we'll certainly, assuming everything plays out as we expect it to, we'll discuss in the coming week or so whether the Bulls and Cavs, how that Eastern Conference semifinal series will shake out. First things first, we know, but that's what everyone's pointing to in the second round of the East.
Oh, yeah. That is the Super Bowl of second-round series. And, Doug, I know we've been following the game for a while. I can't remember a second-round series, at least in the last 10 years or so, that would have the hype that one would have.
Oh, it's
because you've got I mean, you've got LeBron versus Rose. You've got the Bulls who have tried so desperately to get over the hump of beating LeBron in a playoff series with the future of Tom Thibodeau very much uncertain going into the summer. I mean, there are so many storylines that would go into that, and I think that's Tibbs always says, don't skip steps, can't skip steps, got to focus on what's going on in front of you. Okay, that's fine, but the Bulls are a better team than the Bucks. The Cavs are a better team right now than the Celtics. I think the basketball world as a whole would be shocked if that series didn't happen. Now, granted, Bulls fans know better than anyone that injuries can change the dynamic in a playoff series and for season. But that is the series that everybody in Chicago is focused on. And that's why, you don't want to jump ahead for a lot of reasons, but especially with the injuries. Obviously, we talked about Mirotic, and we're not sure how the Cavs will come out of that Boston series. But assuming health, Doug, or relative health at this point in the season, I legitimately think the Bulls could beat Cleveland in a series, truly. I don't think they're going to be the favorite, but they know that all their chips are in. And this group under Tibbs with Noah and Rose and Butler and Taj Gibson, that core has been together for a while. They understand that there could be a lot of changes in the offseason depending on what happens. I think because they've been through that crucible of playing in the playoffs and playing at that high level and going through the losing, they feel like they'll really have a leg up in a series where Cleveland has LeBron, sure, and Kyrie Irving has become a megastar, but they haven't been through it as a group yet. And I think that's why the Bulls have a lot of private confidence that if they get in that series and they can steal one of those first couple games in Cleveland, they're going to be in great shape and they'll be able to close it out at home.
We just touched on one thing I wanted to say. Yes, technically Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving have made their playoff debuts, and they'll have the Celtics series under their belts, but the real test of their playoff mettle will come against the Bulls at a rocking United Center tie game down the stretch. Like that's where we're going to be able to assess this Cavs team, not against the Celtics, which are completely overmatched.
Absolutely. And I've been very critical over time of the United Center crowd in the last few years because, Doug, for the most part, it's a wine and cheese crowd. But in the big
Hey, I've been part of that crowd. Careful.
But in the big games, they always rev up. And when you've got Derrick Rose, who hasn't been playing much in the last few years, throwing his arms up, waving at the crowd, and you've got Joakim Noah giving those primal screams that his teammates thrive off of and the emotion he provides. The last couple nights in this Milwaukee series, it has been rocking in there. And obviously, home court advantage is just one part of the equation, but it's a big part for a fan base that sees LeBron as that roadblock. I mean, in so many ways, LeBron is the roadblock for the Bulls that Michael Jordan was for the Knicks.
I was just about to say, for the Knicks. I was going to say he's the Michael Jordan to their Utah Jazz, Karl Malone.
There you go.
But I think the Knicks are better
there
parallel.
There are a lot of different areas there.
Yeah, Knicks are certainly a better parallel in the Eastern Conference. Well, don't criticize the Bulls fans too much. They're part of your loyal followers. That is Nick Friedell of ESPNChicago.com and also on SportsCenter Airwaves. Maybe tonight. I'm doing the same SportsCenter, so maybe we'll connect tonight as well. Nick,
you got it.
Appreciate you taking the time. We'll keep an eye on the Mirotic injury as well.
You got it, Doug. Thanks for having me on.
All right, and coming up, Bulls not the only team to take a 2-0 series lead last night. In 1 minute, we'll chat with Ethan Strauss about how the Warriors were able to get it done. Plus, Will Reeve stops by with a very cool story about a couple of loyal Warriors fans, some old ladies, let's call them, and they'll embrace that. That's all still ahead on the NBA Lockdown Podcast.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Welcome back to the NBA Lockdown Podcast. I am Doug Kezirian. We're joined now by Ethan Strauss, who covers the Golden State Warriors for ESPN. on all sorts of platforms and has some snarky tweets as well.
Come on.
Oh, sarcastic and humorous. That's
Hashtag hate hard.
No, I'm a fan. I apologize if I insinuated I wasn't. Let's talk about last night's game. So, Warriors take the 2-games-to-none series lead like we all envisioned, but these are two fairly close games, particularly last night's game. What's your overall takeaway of this number one overall seed being pushed to the limit?
Well, the Pelicans are well suited to gear up against the Warriors' attack because they didn't allow a lot of three-pointers during the season, and what they do against the Warriors is they just switch so many pick and rolls. That's really stymied the Warriors' attack. I think Steph Curry, even with heavy minutes, has only 11 assists in the 2 games combined. That's really a testament to the defense the Pelicans are playing in the half court, combined with, man, the Warriors are just scared of Anthony Davis. He's everywhere. I've seen them just reconsider so many passes, pump fake so many shots, flub so many layups. There is the fear of the brow right now, and that's really hurting the Warriors' ability to perform on the offensive end.
Anthony Davis, another impressive stat line, but he was limited, at least on offense, when Draymond Green was guarding him. What was Golden State saying about that last night?
That was just great. That was great. It was an illustration to anybody who's just tuning in about the kind of defender Draymond Green is, the kind of heart that he exhibits. He has a bunch of cliches. I can talk about heart and grit, and it sounds like a bunch of BS, but it's true in his case. And his approach, as he described it to me, and it's easier said than done, is to just take away all the easy shots Anthony Davis could possibly get. Take away the easy shots, and eventually with those heavy minutes, he played 45 minutes, eventually he wears down. Eventually he breaks. And that's what happened when he went 0 for 5 in the final quarter with Draymond Green guarding him.
Well, that was the key, and that's when the Warriors made the move. They started to make the move in the third. New Orleans closed the gap, tie game, and then the Warriors just outlasted them. So what's the temperature, so to speak, of Golden State as the series heads to New Orleans? Because Anthony Davis said last night, amongst the many quotes I read, is we can beat this team.
Yeah, he's been very confident. I was impressed by the confidence that he exhibited in the press conference afterwards. I think if you're looking at the temperature from the Warriors side, I think Steve Kerr is a little bit cranky with how the offense is operating. They seem to be making a lot of the kinds of mistakes and, I thought you were supposed to cut, but you didn't cut situations that you saw at the beginning of the season. And that's really his main concern with this team as far as what could prevent them from winning a title. It's on the offensive end. It's not defense. It's making mistakes, being a young team, having silly turnovers. Those are the types of things that drive Kerr crazy, and those are the types of things that are happening in these first 2 games to spread the victories.
You mentioned Steve Kerr. We also mentioned Draymond Green. Draymond Green clearly in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. We found out today Steve Kerr did not win Coach of the Year. Mike Budenholzer of the Atlanta Hawks, the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. What do you anticipate the reaction with the Warriors?
I anticipate Steve Kerr. I'm on my way to practice right now, or the practice facility. I anticipate Steve Kerr just ripping in to Budenholzer, calling him a bum, just demanding that he get his rightful award as the Coach of the Year. That just leads to success, right? Whoever wins Coach of the Year, they never get fired, right? So Steve Kerr's gonna be really mad about it.
And you said I was off base with my sarcastic label.
Hashtag hate hard.
So let's brief me and brief our listeners on that. What's the jinx of Coach of the Year again?
A lot of people who get Coach of the Year end up getting that act because it's all about exceeding expectations. And then once you've exceeded expectations, it's hard to maintain that. And then that's how coaches get fired by anti owners traditionally. So, I think winning Coach of the Year for a lot of coaches, it's like the wedding bouquet of death. You don't want to catch it. You want to claim for how you're doing a good job and how you're a good coach, but maybe not the official title of Coach of the Year.
When I tweeted at your reply earlier today, I almost think it's impossible to have Coach of the Year and MVP on the same team. Like, you can't both get credit for the impressive performance, even though it sounds stupid out loud, but I can see how Steph Curry hurt Steve Kerr's chances of winning Coach of the Year.
Yeah, it seems like we're doing that nowadays. We're really trying to compartmentalize these awards and say, if you have less talent, then we need to give you more credit, whether it's MVP, whether it's coach. But what's complicated about that is that it's all connected, right? Where if Steve Kerr is doing a great job, then that helps Steph Curry to do a great job and vice versa. Steph Curry being this Steve Nash-esque / Kim Duncan-esque figure who's easy to coach, that's certainly made Kerr's job easier. So everybody helps each other, and we sometimes lose sight of that, I think, when trying to compartmentalize. At the same time, it's hard to argue against Budenholzer. He did a fantastic job. I'm not sure there's a right answer when it comes to something as vague as being the coach of the year.
You raised the operative word is compartmentalizing. I actually think Budenholzer should have won Coach of the Year, just given what they did in the Eastern Conference. Didn't have a single scorer over 30 points, and that's never been done for a 50-win team, let alone a 60-win team. And I do think, with that being said, the Warriors won 67 games, lost 2 games at home all year, had the largest win increase from any 50-win team the year before. But when you're splitting hairs, you're allowed to kind of find the blemishes on the supermodels in the Miss America pageant.
I'm not trying to respond to that one in the context of Kerr, but I will say that if I had to choose, if I had to make a vote on it, I would probably go with Budenholzer. But don't tell that Steve Kerr guy. He's a maniac. He'll kill me. He'll rip my head off. So let's just keep it between us.
Yeah, exactly. This ensures he won't get fired. What did you make of the Sixth of the Year award voting? I actually did a little mini rant on SportsCenter yesterday. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous that Spates and Taj Gibson got a first-place vote.
I think it's ridiculous in general how we just on autopilot go, oh, did you score a lot of points off the bench and you're the sixth man of the year? We just pretend, especially with that vote, that defense isn't half the game. Lou Williams was not the best player off the bench, in my opinion. I just don't think that's true. But we don't want to look harder, and we don't want to look at defensive candidates. So that would be my rant. It might be an objection to your rant. We might have a warring rant.
Okay, so who's your sixth man of the year?
See, that's the problem. I can't really back it up with an answer.
Can't do it. Look, I had no problem with even Mirotić getting the first place vote or Corey Brewer getting a first place vote. I'm not just saying the popular pick is the right one because it was Lou Williams and Isaiah Thomas were overwhelming first place vote getters. But I just think, like, if Taj Gibson, he'd even finish highest for sixth man of the year voting on his own team. Mirotić had more votes. And I just think, I don't want to say irresponsible, but it's a little extreme when you go from one point of, hey, this guy's had a nice year off the bench. This guy should get some consideration to he's getting my only first place vote.
But can you blame them when it comes to taking an award seriously? How do you take an award seriously when it's essentially who handled their demotion best? Because that's what Sixth Man of the Year is, right? It's who really took one on the chin, who took that punch and just kept on trucking. So when you have an award that silly, I can completely understand somebody putting so little thought into it. So I can't rip them. I don't think that the award is done right, but I can understand why people don't want to make the effort to do it right.
But you don't have a solution to the problem.
Oh, just get rid of the Sixth Man Award.
Really?
We don't need it. We don't need it. Let's have some better awards. Let's have some cooler awards. Let's have Wing Defender of the Year. Let's have just more specific. Maybe Coaching Staff of the Year now that it's a huge staff and you look at the bench and it has 80 people over there. We could add some new awards. Just get rid of Sixth Man. We don't need it. That and Most Improved. Those two need to go.
Well, as a recipient in 8th grade basketball of Most Improved, I'm going to defend that award. But but it does mean, like, we thought you sucked, and then now you're not as bad as we thought.
Yeah, that's what it is.
At least in 8th grade hoops. I don't think it's a little different narrative in the NBA. I'm not sure.
I mean, those are the two insulting awards. The NBA excels in insulting awards. We have you handled your demotion well, and you have we thought you were garbage, but it turns out you're okay. Way to go, buddy. Those are the two awards.
But I like the idea of creating new ones, like League Pass Award, things like that. Like, you know, the least likely with the remote in your hand. Who makes you least likely to touch the remote when he's got the ball in his hands?
Yeah, maybe this is an opening for the players now they're doing their own awards. Get us some better awards, you know? Lead the charge on this, NBA players. I'm with it.
All right, Ethan, so do you think you're coming back to the Bay Area for Game 5 of the first-round series?
I do. I think that the Warriors are obviously the better team, but there are just some matchups. There's some matchup. I don't know if I should call them advantages, but I call them proclivities to be fancy about it. Where the number one thing I think you should do against the Warriors is stop them from shooting three-pointers. The Pelicans are good on that front, and that should allow them to just steal one game at the Smoothie King Center, which is a ridiculous arena to say.
I like the nickname, the Blender.
Ooh, I like that too. That's also a good nickname for Anthony Davis. I know we already have the Brow, but I wouldn't mind the Blender.
Why is that? Just a spin-off off the arena and just everything he does?
Yeah, let's go with it. Plus, he carves people up. Something. I don't know. I'm not creative enough to justify what I just said.
All right, Ethan, appreciate the time. Enjoy shoot-around. I look forward to a profanity-laced tirade from Steve Kerr like we saw with baseball last night.
Like toss some red meat to a lion.
Yeah, Brian Price, exactly. All right, thanks for joining us. Follow him on Twitter. You'll have a few chuckles. And let's keep it with the Warriors, at least for their fans, and welcome in Will Reeve, who does a lot of stories for ESPN, ESPN.com, a lot of fun stuff. And, Will, I think that's the word that I took away when I saw your piece. It's fun. Tell us a little bit about this piece of two Warriors fans, 78 years young, and both of them been loyal season ticket holders.
Oh, they were incredible, and thank you for having me on today, Doug. And yes, fun was definitely the operative word. I spent a day and evening with them, Rosemarie and Marion, last Monday. The Warriors played the Grizzlies last night, so they let us tag along. Spent the day with them in Vacaville, California, which is about an hour away, and they showed us all their memorabilia. And then they hopped on the train, which is over an hour away from Oracle Arena where the Warriors play. We met up with them again, hung out in the very last row of the arena. They have a great group around them, and it was quite the experience to watch part of the game with them.
All right, so let's a little bit more context. They sit in the very last row of the arena, and they've become, I don't know, celebrities, if you will, in the arena. It took them forever to get to their seat because everyone stops and talks to them, right?
Oh, yeah. I felt like I was walking with, maybe not the Pope, but someone almost on that level. They were getting mobbed basically everywhere we went because they know everyone there, which I guess is what happens when you have season tickets for almost 30 years and sit in the same section. The Warriors, the ticket takers knew them, the ushers knew them. Of course, it's probably the fact that we had a camera and a boom mic with lights and everything following them around drew a little extra attention, but they deserved every second of it because they were a riot.
Well, and everyone knew why the cameras were there, so they already knew the backstory. But what exactly is the backstory? First of all, what's the connection between these two? Neighbors, friends, what's the connection?
They are friends and neighbors, and Rosemarie is the white-haired woman in the piece for a little more context for you. But anyway, she had tickets to a game in 1988, and she invited her son. It was a playoff game, and he couldn't go, so Rosemarie decided to invite her friend Marion, who went along with her, and they had such a good time that they just kept going, and then they each got season tickets, and the rest, as they say, is history. They just love going together, and everyone loves seeing them together, and they have a great group up there.
You mentioned well, first let me get to the memorabilia in a moment, but why haven't they moved up? Why are they still in the very last row of the arena?
It's personal preference. The Warriors have honored them at games, put them on as like sort of fan of the week or fan of the game or what have you. And they've been offered upgrades. They've been offered perks. They've been offered all these things, and they just say no every time. They love it up in the back. They say it's the best view because you can see the play develop. And they just have no interest in moving, and it's worked for them so far.
Well, I guess you don't get beer spilled on your head that way, right? And you don't have anyone kicking the back of your chair. What?
Oh yeah, no, not at all. The only thing behind them is a concrete wall, so they've got nothing to worry about behind them.
I've sat in a seat like that for the Stanley Cup Finals once, but hey, in that kind of stage, you'll get any seat you can get. What about the memorabilia?
Oh yeah, once you're in the building, that's all that matters.
Right. What about the memorabilia in their home?
So Rosemarie has collected memorabilia from pins that the team sends her every year. She renews her tickets. She's got a bunch of bobbleheads. She's got pictures. She loves going. They both love going to team-sponsored events. You know, sort of a meet the players, meet and greet type thing. And she goes to all those and gets pictures and talks with the team. So they kind of know who they are, too, the players on the team. More so a few years ago. Now that it's a new, young team, they don't know each other as well, but I'm sure they'll get to know each other. But, yeah, she has tons of memorabilia, and she keeps it in her laundry room, which can barely fit one person just to do the laundry. So we had to pull it out and put it on the kitchen counter just so we could shoot it. But it was funny, after the piece, after we finished shooting for the afternoon, the cameraman, Gary, and I helped Marion and Rosemarie put the memorabilia back up on the shelves of the laundry room. So we're in there with a step ladder, and she was directing us. She was very particular about where everything had to go.
Solid. True gentlemen you guys are. I was thinking when you started the story, I was thinking you helped fold laundry. That's where I thought that was going.
You know what? I offered to do whatever she needed me to do. She was like a sweet grandmother, you know, and you can't say no to people like that.
No, not at all. What's their level of knowledge and understanding of, I know the Warriors are big on analytics, things like that. How knowledgeable fans are they?
Well, funnily enough, you mentioned analytics. Rosemarie was a math teacher, so I'm sure she can grasp the analytical side of the game. But in all seriousness, she really knew her stuff, and they both did. So did Marion.
Awesome.
They're very much on top of it. They watch ESPN all the time. They're big consumers of the Warriors, so they were teaching me things that I had no idea about.
Maybe, and obviously you did some research heading into this story, so you kind of knew at least a foundation, if not much more than that. But what's one thing that really, really, let's call it, shocked you after doing the piece and visiting with them?
Oh, man. That shocked me. About the Warriors?
No, about these two ladies.
Oh, well, okay, here's one interesting thing. Rosemarie was an usher at the 1996 Olympics, which in Atlanta, and was there for, I believe Nigeria won the gold medal that year. They won a game, and a player in his euphoria gave her his bouquet of flowers, and she has a replica of the flowers on a mantle, and it's the only non-Warriors piece of sports memorabilia in the house. So I was very shocked to see the level of her commitment, not just to basketball and the Warriors, but to sports in general. She really is a fan.
Wow, and that's in Atlanta, and there she is back in California to be a Warriors fan. Impressive. Very cool.
Right, and she's from Ohio, so she's all over the place.
Nice. All right. Will Reeve, we appreciate the time. You can watch his piece on SportsCenter throughout the day. I'll be anchoring SportsCenter 7 to 9 Eastern tonight. I'm sure I'll be fronting the piece and tossing to you, so good to come full circle here and connect on the NBA Lockdown podcast.
Doug, thanks so much, man.
All right, man. See you around campus soon as well. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the NBA Lockdown podcast. Again, Will's piece runs on SportsCenter throughout the day. You can also catch it on ESPN.com. Also, thanks to Ethan Strauss and Nick Friedell for joining us with the inside scoop, so to speak, on their two teams that they're covering that are up 2-0 in their playoff series. NBA Lockdown podcast every day throughout the playoffs, so we'll see you tomorrow on Wednesday on the NBA Lockdown podcast.
Thanks for listening to NBA Lockdown on ESPN Radio. For more great podcasts, check out the PodCenter page on ESPNRadio.com.